everybody, to another edition of the Cover 2 podcast. I am Nick Nenad.
And I'm Jared Smith.
And boy, do we have another big football show for you today. College football, the NFL, it's all on now. Jared, we have 2 days of full football every single weekend, every single Monday, every single Thursday for the rest of 2021.
Go, baby.
How do you feel about that? Just to start off this podcast, because we're going to talk about so much, and I'm going to get into that right after you speak right here. But how do you feel about the fact that we have double the football every weekend from here on out?
Listen, it's the only way I get over summer being over, right? Is knowing that, because who doesn't love summer, right? Just sunny weather all the time. And we live in Southern California, so we're lucky enough to have it year round. But still, just vacations, all this stuff. And now it's like, even though, not in school anymore, it's like now that we're in September and fall, it's like back to work. You don't really have vacations planned anymore. All that's done. And there's not much to look forward to other than the weekends with college football on Saturday, the NFL on Sunday. And now, obviously there's high school football on Fridays, but we've got Monday night football. We've got Thursday night football. There's usually a Thursday night college football game. So, almost very close to every day of the week, there is some type of football being played on your television or, somewhere where you can stream. So I'm excited, man. I love it. And if the NFL season is anything like what we got in week 1, it's going to be a crazy ass year, man. I cannot wait. College football, we've already had some coaches get fired. We've had some up and down play, the inconsistency. So it's like there may be some 1 or 2 top teams, but the rest of the field, it is up for grabs, right? And so there's so much to debate there. Let's get into it, man. We got something right off the bat to talk about that you and I are very close to just because of where we live. Yep. But I'll let you introduce that to the viewers.
No, Jared Smith, we have so much to talk about today, and we're excited about every single one of it. Later in the show, we will get into the NFL because, of course, it was week 1. We're going to try to cover every single team. Now, you may be thinking, oh, my God, it's going to be like a 3-hour podcast. No, we have it outlined to where it's not going to be a 3-hour podcast. We're not going to talk about every single team and every single game, but we're going to try to touch on at least an element of every team and every game this weekend, and we've outlined that enough to do it in a timely manner. So get excited about that. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk about the college football that was week 2 or week 3, however you want to call it. If you're a UCLA fan, it's week 3 for you. If you're every other fan, it's week 2, right? We're going to get into that as well and go over some of the top teams' performances again, what we were right and what we were wrong on this weekend. And we were actually right about a lot of stuff. So we're going to be kind of gloating on this podcast in that segment. And then, of course, we're going to start the show with the University of Southern California. USC fired Clay Helton yesterday as their head coach of their football team. It goes after probably the most embarrassing college football loss of the season so far for any organization. USC was destroyed by an unranked Stanford team that a lot of people think is the worst Stanford team in the last decade. And, I was around a lot of USC fans watching that game, and it was the most down I've seen that fan base really since, man, I don't know. For a while, I can't touch on how disappointing that was, because this was supposed to be USC's kind of comeback season in some ways.
Probably since they got all their scholarships taken away.
Yeah, that's okay. Very good point. Yeah, since they were ineligible to make the playoffs every year, right? That's a very good point, Jared. But after all that, Clay Helton is fired. Jared, I'm going to give you first crack on this one because I have so much to say, and I don't want to just have this podcast start with me in a way. But what are your thoughts on not only Clay Helton finally being fired, him not being the literal coach of the team anymore, but what are your thoughts on also the decision to do it after the second game of the season?
I think this is at least a year overdue, probably 2 years overdue, right? I don't understand the reasoning right now. Yes, I get it, right? It was a horrible, embarrassing loss to not only a division rival, but like you mentioned, a Stanford team that is not good, that was unranked. Now, I don't necessarily want to say it was the most embarrassing loss of the season. I think because you're a UCLA fan, I was a little biased there, and you're trying to take a little shot at USC. I think Florida State losing to a Jacksonville State is a little more embarrassing on the last second Hail Mary. So I'll give Florida State that trophy for now. But no doubt, USC at home should have handled their business against a Stanford team where USC clearly was more talented, at least from the top of the depth chart. But for some reason, Clay Helton just did not seem like the guy to bring the glue to bring everything together. And that is essentially what you need in a college football coach, right? It's more than just X's and O's and all the rah-rah stuff, right? You need to be able to recruit not only within your state, but have pipelines all throughout the country. And I don't think Clay Helton has that. That's something that USC has, right? But Clay Helton necessarily does not have that. And I think that was something that kind of really ruined this university from the jump, right? Clay Helton, I know for a fact, was not USC's first choice when he got hired. I believe he was like the third or fourth choice. And the first three guys tried to hire, they all, for whatever reason, turned it down and said no. And it was like, all right, well, we need a coach. Here you go, right? And the first couple years, he had them in double-digit wins, winning the Pac-12 South, getting to the Pac-12 championship game. But USC has never been able to crack the college football championship. And I'm sorry, this is USC we're talking about, right? We've already said that multiple times. This is not, no offense, Boise State or, I don't know, Idaho or Jacksonville State. Like, this is USC, known for predominantly, recruiting all throughout the state and legitimately being a contender, right? In the early 2000s, Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, that is what we know about USC, not only producing talent that goes to the NFL, but on a consistent basis, winning year in and year out. And ever since Pete Carroll left to go to the NFL and the Seattle Seahawks, USC has been doomed, right? You can say what you want about Pete Carroll and how he left that organization and all the turmoil that happened under his tutelage and under his umbrella. But at the end of the day, this USC program has not been able to get over Pete Carroll leaving. And they've had multiple ADs, multiple people in high-level positions that have been making these decisions. And so far, none of it has worked. So I can't wait to hear your thoughts coming from a non-USC fan, because I do follow USC. I've liked them since I was a kid. And I feel like I'm being a little bit tame right now. So I want to hear your thoughts. You go in on it, because USC deserves all of it. A lot of times I would probably, stick up for USC and say, oh, no, man, calm down. You're wrong. You're just being a hater. No, right now, floor is yours. You go ahead. Dig in.
Ring the bell, Jared. Ring the bell.
Ding.
November 25th, 2018. You and I had a conversation on Twitter about Clay Helton, that Clay Helton should be fired. November 25th, 2018. That was 3 years ago, Jared. 3 years ago. December 3rd, 2019. It's 1 year later. I tweeted, no way USC actually brings back Clay Helton, right? Tweeted that. We had a podcast in 2018 about why is USC keeping Clay Helton. 2018. I believe it was in a response to our tweets that we made. In 2020, November, I tweeted, check down, run the same play on 4th and short. Why was Helton ever still the head coach to start the season? Okay? This is ridiculous, Jared, that this guy lasted this long. By the way, that 2020 tweet, that was during the pandemic last year, that's exactly what they did against Stanford this weekend. Like that tweet a year ago even makes sense to what happened this last weekend. Check down, long pass that doesn't get completed, and bad plays on 4th and 3rd down. It's why they lost to Stanford. Stanford runs the right plays, and they end up beating you by a lot because they have a smarter coach than you. I mean, they probably all the players are smarter. They go to Stanford. I know. Okay, whatever. But, it's a long time coming. That's how I want to do this conversation today, Jared, is that this USC program has no idea what it's doing. I mean, for 3 years, everybody said that this guy shouldn't be the head coach. And for 3 years, this team has not sniffed anywhere close to a Rose Bowl or a national championship. Clearly, Sam Darnold was the reason that this team won the Rose Bowl. What was it, 3-4 years ago? Okay, probably 4 years ago, because in 2018 we were tweeting about the guy should be fired, right? And you know, I came on here. I hopefully I said it on the podcast last week. I said that, you know, Clay Helton's record, he has double-digit losses without Sam Darnold as his quarterback. You know, that's not what a championship head coach should have, right? The same with Ed Orgeron. This USC team is a mess. You say it starts at the top. It does. Okay. You know, USC as a whole can't even control its university. We all know what's happened to USC at the top. They can't pay a coach because they had a horrible thing happening behind the scenes. Everybody got fired. They have a new president. They have a new AD because of it. You know, I think it's one of the worst football organizations run in America today, the USC Trojans. This team, with how many top athletes have come out of Southern California, this team should be the best team in the nation right now. The quarterback for Alabama decommitted from USC because they brought Clay Helton back. Bryce Young, you guys all know who he is. The guy making $1 million before he even touches the ball at Alabama. DJ Uiagalelei, he's the quarterback at St. John. Yeah, at Clemson. He was at St. John Bosco. One of the best quarterback prospects ever to come out of Southern California. He chose Clemson over USC. Didn't even think about USC. Oregon was over USC. I don't even think he visited USC. The quarterback for Georgia that just beat Clemson, he went to Modern Day. He was at USC. He left.
JT Daniels.
Yeah, he left. He left USC because I don't think he liked playing for Clay Helton. I could go on and on and on and on, but this team should be the most talented team in the nation right now, especially at quarterback. They had 3 chances to have the guy, and those 3 guys are in the top 5 right now in the nation. Yeah, they have good teams, but you know, at quarterback they should have the best team. And one more thing, Jared, now I'll let you respond. I heard Colin Cowherd today say that USC has about 16 to 18 offensive linemen in their program, and none of them are close to being NFL prospects. How ridiculous is that? Again, some of the best offensive linemen come from Southern California. You know, I know some guys that have been drafted the last couple of years that went to the Georgias, they went to the Clemsons, they went to the Ohio States. Wyatt Davis being an example, he was the top offensive lineman. He went to Ohio State for 3 years. Now he's playing in the NFL. Could have been at USC. He's not, because no one wants to play for Clay Helton, or no one wants to be at this university and play sports, because the people that run the university don't even know what they're doing either. Jared, I'll let you respond.
Yeah, this is normally a time where I would say, all right, you know, you're done. Your soliloquy is over. You know, you've had your chance. But I can't do anything but piggyback off of what you said. Currently, right now, as we sit, September 14th, 2021, on a Tuesday, in the top 10 for high school football teams around the country,
yeah,
3 of those top 10 teams are from California and Southern California. You have Modern Day, who sits at number 1. St. John Bosco's number 3, if I'm not mistaken, and I believe Servite's number 9, right? So when you have 3 of the top 10 high school football programs in the entire country right in your backyard, not to say that those teams have been top 10 for the last couple of years, but they've been hovering around top 15, top 20. Modern Day and Servite have been up there forever, right? And the fact that you cannot keep those athletes, right, in your own pipeline, in your own backyard, is what is the most embarrassing thing. Right? When they're saying, oh, no, I would rather go to Oregon. I would rather go to Arizona State. I'd rather go to UCLA. I'd rather go to Notre Dame, Ohio State. I'm going to leave this state because I do not want to play for USC. That does not happen.
Yeah.
Right? That has never happened in any decade since USC's existence other than now. Right? USC has always been prestigious. It's not just it's been about the academics. We know how well their academics are. and their alumni association and all that stuff and what you can get, once you graduate, and obviously the athletes that have come before these guys now. Something needs to change. It started with the head coach, but I think more needs to be done, right? Like there needs to be an entire culture change with this program and with this university, because I think there's still some stink from the USC, the Reggie Bush days and that whole scandal that left this team scholarship depleted, right? I believe that is now all done, or at least they are damn near close to being back to 100% scholarship-wise. But they need to bring in a coach that has won at the collegiate level, right? And I've heard Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator from the Kansas City Chiefs, who for the last 2 years has been interviewing for NFL head coaching jobs, right? I've heard his name, and I think that would be nice. But I think what USC needs is a head coach that not only can win games, but can recruit the hell out of athletes, right? Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing that USC needs. They have everything else. You're in Southern California. It is sunny 365 days a year. You're going to get the education. You're going to get the alumni benefit. You're going to get some of the best facilities. You get to play at the Coliseum, right? Every single year. There's not much that USC is missing except for the leadership aspect and the recruiting aspect. And so I really thought that it was going to be Urban Meyer at one point when he was still a broadcaster for Fox before he ended up taking the Jacksonville Jaguars head coaching job. And we hear names out there now, but all the names that I'm hearing, like Franklin, the head coach at Penn State. I've heard the Iowa State head coach. I even heard, I think I was reading an ESPN article, and I don't know who wrote it. I don't even want to say his name, but I heard the Mark, what's his name, the head coach at the University of Oregon. I heard his name thrown in there, and I'm like, what? Why would he leave Oregon?
Why would any of those guys leave?
Just beat Ohio State and got bumped up into the top 5. Why would he leave that program that is dominating right now to go to USC? It makes no sense. It absolutely makes no sense. So I don't know where they go from here. Their current AD and the people that are making the decisions right now, I hope that they are not puppets for the booster program and the people that are contributing millions of dollars to USC. Because I believe in years past, that is where USC has gotten in trouble. Because they're listening to boosters and they're listening to the money as opposed to listening to the actual professionals and people who know how to hire a football head coach, right? It's like, oh, this guy gave $10 million. We're going to get his input and see what he has to say. Nobody cares about the boosters and the fans and what they have to say, right? There's a reason that the current AD is there, right? And the people in head administration are there. They are the ones that need to be making the decision. So it's on them, right? Are they going to be puppets, and are they going to give in to the money and the booster aspect of USC, or are they actually going to, put their feet on the ground and say, no, we're going to make the best decision for this football program to get them back to dominance? We'll see.
Jared, they don't care though. They don't care about the football team being successful. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't want them to be successful because of all the NIL stuff going on. The fact that these guys can get paid money, they probably don't care anymore. They're probably like, you know what, whatever. These guys, they're going to take money away from us. We'll take money away from them. I'll say this is my last thing. And piggyback off, we've been talking about players that are not going to USC. Okay. One thing I want to mention, I forgot about a guy. So I mentioned Bryce Young is at Alabama. Alabama is the best college football team in the nation right now. DJ from St. John Bosco is at Clemson. We all know how good Clemson is. Okay. He actually played last year against Notre Dame and almost beat him. JT Daniels left USC. He's at Georgia. Georgia is a top 5 team. I could probably come up with another one, but I can't think off the top of my head. I do know, Jared, Stanford's quarterback is from Corona Centennial. Corona Centennial is a powerhouse in Southern California. They always have been. One of the best high school football teams in the nation every single year comes out of Corona, California. Tanner McKee destroyed USC, destroyed the hometown team the other day. Okay. Also, we look at the 2022 class out of California. The top 25 players out of California, only 2 are going to USC. There's Michigan State. There's Cal, UCLA, U of A. A lot of Notre Dame, Jared. A lot of Notre Dame. ASU, Oregon, Texas, Stanford, Oklahoma, 2 USC. One's a corner. One is, a wide receiver. Because that's going to make the big difference, right, Jared? Whew. They got the number one recruit last year. I'll give him that in Corey Foreman. Corey Foreman. He's from Corona Centennial. I'll give him that. But in college football, you got to have a lot more than one guy. You got to have a lot more.
I'll say this as a USC fan to wrap this up. I don't care about the status of the next coach that gets brought in. I don't care if he's won a championship or not at the collegiate or NFL level. I really care about what he, if he's going to live up to the truth that he is going to express to his new team, right, and his players, and if he can recruit. Those 2 things, right? Like, be honorable in what you're saying and mean it, and be able to recruit and have a pipeline nationwide.
Yeah.
Because
I agree.
Everything else.
That's everything in college football, right? Like, in the NFL, you can just sign a guy and tell him, we're going to pay you this much. We'll play you in this position. You want to sign here? And a lot of guys do. In college, there's a lot of other places you can go, and it's all kind of the same thing. And right now, Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, even Texas, they offer a better chance at not only playing great college football, but you're going to make more money. There's bigger brands, right? Would you rather, if you're looking to make the most money, are you going to play for the Cowboys or are you going to play for the Buffalo Bills? Probably the Cowboys, right, Jared? Even if the Buffalo Bills are better. If you want the status, right, you're going to play for the Cowboys, right? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. All right, let's get into more college football. USC obviously lost to Stanford, so USC, is one of those disappointing teams from this weekend. I just want to give myself a little bit of credit, Jared, about last week, okay? And I know you agree with me because we got a lot of this right too. But boy, did I get a lot right this weekend. I thought the Oregon-Ohio State game would be a good game. It was. I thought I talked about how many frauds there were in college football last week, and boy, did those frauds, they still acted like frauds. Texas A&M scored 10 points against Colorado, and really should have lost. I know the quarterback got hurt, but you should have more talent than that, being the number 5 team. Notre Dame almost lost for the second week in a row. This time to Toledo. Yes, Toledo, Ohio. Almost beat Notre Dame. Okay. Yikes. Iowa State showed their true colors. They barely lost, or they barely beat Northern Iowa, who's a Division II team, and they got trounced by Iowa in an Iowa way, right? That score, 27-17, doesn't show that. But when you lose by double digits to Iowa, that means you got killed by Iowa. Okay. Florida State showed they were frauds. I guess the Arkansas-Texas game. I said, watch out. Arkansas is going to beat Texas because Texas isn't that good, and they're overrated because of their name, just like USC, just like Michigan. Steve Sarkisian is the coach of Texas. That doesn't mean anything. Steve Sarkisian wasn't successful at USC. He was successful as an assistant coach at Alabama, right? That's how everybody is. They never end up being Alabama. So, I just want to glow a little bit that I got a lot right in this college weekend. But Jared, I want you to talk about, what you think about like the top 10 now in college football and who you think are kind of pretenders and contenders in some way, especially Oregon, who ended up beating Ohio State.
Yeah, no, I don't know any other way to say this. There's one elite team, and that's Alabama, and there's everyone else, right? I think we can put Georgia in a 1B category because of their defense. Offensively, I don't know if they're going to be able to. They put up 56 against UAB, but it's freaking UAB, right? Now we'll see what they do later in the season when they get into their SEC schedule. Defensively, they're going to be there, and I think it's going to keep them in games. But are they going to be able to put up the points? Right? JT Daniel did not play last game. Their backup Bennett did. touchdowns. So that's awesome. He got some confidence there. But I'm not sure that a Georgia team going up against Alabama is going to be able to score enough points. Oregon, obviously, probably the most impressive team coming off of this past weekend, going into Ohio State and beating Ohio State. Head coach Ryan Day's first regular season loss and their first loss at home in I don't know how many years. So Oregon's up there as well. But if Oregon were to match up against an Alabama, I really don't know if they would have much of a chance, right? So I clearly put Alabama in a 1A category all by themselves. I put Georgia and I'll put Oregon in a 1B. And really that's what I'm looking at right now. I mean, like I know we can talk about all these other teams. We can talk about Clemson. We can talk about Notre Dame. I don't know, Oklahoma. But it's like when it really comes down to it, are any of these teams going to challenge Alabama for the national title, right? Do they have enough juice to challenge Alabama? And I don't think so. Oklahoma, hell no. Oklahoma almost lost to Tulane. We already talked about that enough on last week's podcast. Texas A&M barely escaped a Colorado team. Now I get it, Texas A&M lost their starting quarterback, but still they only put up 10 points.
Yeah,
that ain't good enough. And you're in the SEC.
You're number
Texas
5.
A&M,
you should have a backup quarterback that can play.
Texas A&M going to get their ass whipped this year. I can tell you that. They win a game by 3 points against a Pac-12 team. That ain't happening. Not happening at all. Notre Dame, back-to-back weeks.
Yeah.
Right? Where they get a scare, and they really should have lost to Toledo. Toledo kind of lost that game for themselves. Iowa seems to be pretty impressive. Like you mentioned, Iowa doesn't blow anyone out. They're a tough team to play. You don't really want to play them. If I'm Alabama, I don't want to play Iowa.
No.
Not because I know we're not going to win, but because Iowa is just going to smack you in the mouth every single play. Like, Alabama is probably the most physically imposing team in college football. And number 2, I will probably say it's Iowa.
Good.
They're
very
right
good point.
behind you, right? They're going to say, we're not going to get embarrassed by anyone. We may not win every game. We're not going to be the flashiest team. We're not going to go 5 wide and throw it 50 times for 500 yards. But we're going to ground and pound. We're going to play great defense. We're going to hit you in the mouth. They're like the epitome of old school football. So I love Iowa and what they're doing. I think they should be higher than a top 10 ranking. And I think if they continue to win, they will be. But really, like I said, when I look at it, for me, it's plain and simple. It is Alabama and it's everyone else. As of right now, I can see Georgia getting into the college football playoff somehow. Oregon seems to be trending that way, but you never know. They're still in the Pac-12, and so they might get a Pac-12 disease and somehow have a hiccup at some point. Seems to happen to every Pac-12 team, right? What was the last year that we had a Pac-12 team in the college football playoff? It had to have been Oregon.
Was it?
I can't tell you what year, but it
could have been Washington. Remember Washington with Jake Browning got in against, they played Alabama and got smacked in the mouth, of course.
Okay, that's blanking my memory. But I don't trust any Pac-12 teams. As good as Oregon looked and as much credit as they deserve, they're still in the Pac-12. And so they just automatically get that stigma. And I'm sorry. Dominate the rest of the Pac-12, including USC, which they probably will. And as the weeks progress, I will slowly start to put one foot in and then the other foot in. Right now, I'm still a little hesitant because they're still in the Pac-12.
Yeah. No, I mean, the Pac-12 has looked, well, they looked great in week 1, right? They looked really good in week 1. And then last week with USC, kind of disappointing. But the Pac-12, Jared, I'll say this year, they look better than they have in the last few years. Like Colorado playing that way against Texas A&M, that looks good on the Pac-12. Right, Texas A&M is a solid team. They're a ranked team. They're not a top 10 team in my opinion. Definitely not top 5, but they're still a ranked team. And for Colorado, who's kind of been a joke the last few years, to do that, at home to them. I know it was in the Broncos stadium, but still, to do that was impressive, right? UCLA to do that to LSU was impressive. Oregon to do that. Ohio State is a ranked team. They are a top team. Before I get into just kind of going over the rankings and discussing and piggybacking off what you said, Ohio State was one of those frauds too. I tweeted it on Saturday. I said that Ohio State has everything but a quarterback this year. Now, the defense isn't the best either, but you can not have the best defense and get pretty far in college football. We know that from the Big 12, right? That you can be a top 5 team and have no defense. Ohio State, they were a bit of frauds in their ranking, and I'm glad Oregon beat them. But I agree with you, Jared. It doesn't prove enough about Oregon that they should be, like this number 5-4 team they are now. So, it's going to be interesting the rest of the way how it projects. Starting with Alabama at number 1. When you look at their schedule, Jared, the next month, okay, by October 10th, we're going to know how legit Alabama is, okay? I know their first win was really impressive against Miami, but I just don't think Miami's that great of a team, right? They get the easy win against Mercer, right? They play number 11 Florida this week in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. That is one of the toughest environments you can ever play in. If Florida can figure out their quarterback situation, which means start Anthony Richardson, Florida has a chance, okay, with that defense, with that coach. They have a chance to beat Alabama, and if Alabama really, picks on them, that's impressive. They have an easy game against Southern Miss. They'll win. And then they have Ole Miss, who's ranked number 17 right now, 2 impressive wins to start the season, and Texas A&M. After that, it's pretty easy, the rest of their schedule. So Alabama, we're going to find out how legitimate they are the next month, right? And by October 10th, we might know who the national champion is going to be, or at least know that Alabama is going to be in the Final Four.
But I can tell you they're going to be there right now.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, Jay. Yeah, I agree with you. But I like Florida could just be a great team this year. They haven't decided on their quarterback yet, right? Ole Miss, they look impressive. They haven't played a legitimate team yet, but they are in the SEC and they do get to play Alabama, right? Texas A&M, I don't think they'll beat Alabama, so I'm not putting them in there. They've had, 2 subpar performances in a row. Why the hell are they all of a sudden going to beat Alabama in a month, right? So I'll give it Alabama. They still have a little bit to prove, but they are the most impressive team. You mentioned Iowa. I really like Iowa this year. Especially in this year where it seems like a lot of teams are questionable, like Clemson and Texas A&M and Ohio State. Oklahoma. Okay, I know they didn't play well. Hold on, Jared. This is where I disagree with you a bit. They had that game against Tulane. Hold on. They had the game against Tulane. They beat the crap out of whoever they played this weekend. They got that revenge game. Tulane actually has been really impressive. What was it? I was just looking it up. Where is it? No, hold on. Sorry, not really impressive. They blew out their opponent, right? If they were such a bad team, they wouldn't be winning by 49 in the next game, right? They play Ole Miss this weekend. Okay, this Saturday they play Ole Miss. Let's say they beat Ole Miss. Oklahoma looks a little bit better, right, Jared? Right? If they beat Ole Miss, why? Why
it's Tulane.
But how do you? But Jared, that's like saying Coastal Carolina.
Do you know where Tulane is? Do you know where Tulane is?
It's in Louisiana. Yes.
Okay. I would guarantee most people do not know where the University of Tulane is,
that's not
nor
fair.
do they give a damn. It is Tulane. I don't care if they win their division. I don't care if they win their conference. It is Tulane.
This is where we disagree. Because I want to see how Tulane played this weekend after what I saw Oklahoma do in their second game. Tulane, they look impressive. I know they play a lower ranked opponent, whatever, right? They kill them by 49. If they beat Ole Miss or go to the wire with Ole Miss, Oklahoma looks a little bit better. They look a lot better than like Ohio State, right? Who didn't look that impressive in their first game. They look better than Notre Dame, right? Maybe not true contenders, but they look a lot better. They look like a top 5 team in this year, right? But hey, Jared, would you have cared? Would you have thought anything of Coastal Carolina 2 years ago? No. But they're number 16, and a lot of us just look like, they're a pretty good team. Because they had a great year last year, right? BYU, all that stuff, right? So, I'll give Tulane. If they get killed by Ole Miss, Oklahoma are frauds. If Tulane loses by, single digits to Ole Miss, I'm going to give a little bit more credit to Oklahoma. I'm just telling you that right now. We're going to disagree, which is good because we have a podcast together. We should disagree. I've talked about Texas A&M, Clemson. Georgia, I think, needs to prove a little bit more. I think Clemson's just not the team that they usually are this year. And you can't score 10 points and tell me that you're a top 10 team, Texas A&M. Cincinnati looks impressive so far. Now, they obviously need to play a legitimate opponent too, but they're stomping on all their opponents, and they've looked good so far. Penn State, again, they play Auburn this week, so that will be a test. They're kind of a slow, methodical team, much like Iowa. They still have a chance at the college football playoff, in my opinion, because if they can beat Ohio State, and if they can, if they go undefeated or they end up only losing one game, they could be one of those teams in the top there from the Big Ten. Out of that, besides that, though, you have Florida number 11. Like I said, if they beat Alabama, they almost punch their ticket unless they lose 2 games. And then UCLA is the one where it's like at far out number 13. If they go on a run and win most of their games and only lose 1 game, they beat Oregon, they beat USC, they do all this stuff, right? They beat Stanford. They might have a chance as well since they already beat LSU. And LSU looked really impressive in their second game too. So, yeah, I mean, but not much. Like Alabama impresses me. I think they're a top team. Iowa is impressive. Oregon, because the big win against Ohio State, has a chance. Cincinnati, if they go undefeated, maybe. Penn State, Florida, UCLA. That's really it for me right now. It's really it, which is weird, right? And then I'll give Ole Miss like a far-reaching chance because they play Alabama this year. But that's really it. All these other teams kind of showed that they were frauds and they don't really have a chance in the national championship. Maybe one of these teams is like the Notre Dame of last year, or like one of these teams just sneaks in and ends up being a team that could be a legitimate contender. But Alabama is that top team. But they do have a difficult schedule next month. Very difficult schedule this next month. Real quickly before we move on, I just want to go over the games this week like we did and maybe pick an upset here like I did last week. Okay, game to watch, UCLA, Fresno State. Okay, Fresno State, listen, Jared. Fresno State lost to Oregon by 7. This might be an upset of UCLA. We'll see how legit UCLA is. If UCLA pounds Fresno State, and then Oregon beat them by 7, right? It's like, again, you look at UCLA as you go, okay, maybe they're legit this year. They have a great head coach, right? You can't argue with the head coach at UCLA. It's Chip Kelly. He's been a national champion. He's been in a national championship before, right? So that's upset alert game. That's not biased, Jared. I'm saying UCLA might lose that game. Might be a trap game. When you look at the rest of the schedule, though, obviously, like I said, you have Alabama, Florida. That's the top game. Can't wait for that. Cannot wait for that. You have, let's see, Penn State, Auburn. Auburn coming in unranked to start the season. Now they're at number 22, being 2-0. Again, maybe Auburn is more legit than we think too, but that's going to be kind of a tell game for more Penn State than anything. And then you have ASU, BYU. I think BYU wins that game too. But so, not too many great games, but you have the Florida-Alabama game. You have Penn State playing a ranked opponent, and you have UCLA possibly in a trap game. Not too much to talk about there. I think Oklahoma should really destroy Nebraska. That would help their fraud claim, or that would help their fraud claim for Jared Smith if they end up, really struggling in that game, because Nebraska's look like crap to start this season. But so I'll go. My upset alert is actually Fresno State, UCLA. But that's where I'll go. I think that's the game where you might see like Fresno State beat that line, that 11.5 line, and in UCLA, if they struggle, it's going to hurt my claim. That's all I'll say. I've been right so far, though. I've been right so far this year. So maybe not as much betting on college football this week because there's a lot of mismatches. But and I probably won't bet on the UCLA game because I might be there actually too. So we'll see. All right, Jared. 40 minutes in.
Don't go to that game. Don't do that to yourself.
Disappoint myself. Come back. Not want to watch football the next day.
You go to that game and they lose.
Oh, Jared, you're gonna get me. I know you're gonna get me on the podcast.
I'm trying to help you out right now. Is what I'm trying to do.
I thank you for that. Thank you for that. But yeah, hopefully some of those top teams really just start destroying some of these opponents. And like we said, once we get into week 4, week 5 in college football, you're really going to see start these conference matchups and stuff like that. We'll get more going. And I do like that Alabama has a tough schedule next month because they have looked legit, but maybe they aren't. Right? Maybe they aren't if they end up losing one of these games to Ole Miss or Texas A&M or Florida. All right, Jared, 40 minutes in, we need to get to the NFL. Okay, so much to talk about here. We want to start, though, with that crazy Monday Night Football game we watched last night. We're recording here on Tuesday. Boy, I watched that game from the first snap of the first quarter to the last snap in overtime. One of the craziest endings I've watched. You obviously had the Ravens missing all those running backs, right? You have the defense missing some players, especially Marcus Peters at corner. They're missing Jimmy Smith, right? And you have the Raiders who, we've been kind of chopping down as like this team. It might be the end of this like kind of successful run with Gruden and Derek Carr. What's going to happen? And they didn't really look very good in the first half, and the Ravens looked pretty good. And then all of a sudden, the Ravens made mistakes, and the Raiders came back, and it's just craziness. What was your thoughts, Jared, on this game? And what does it tell you about both teams after?
I'm not worried about the Ravens. The Ravens are going to be there. Lamar Jackson, he knows that he cannot fumble the ball. I believe the Ravens lead the league in the most injured reserve players already, right? We're going into week 2, and I believe they have 12 on the offensive and defensive side of the football. So obviously right there, that's a big problem, right? Your top 3 running backs are gone. One of your top corners is gone. You have a couple of linebackers out. So obviously they're already behind the 8 ball, but they've still got Lamar Jackson. They've still got a plethora of receivers, and they still have Harbaugh as their head coach. So I'm going to give them a good shot. Plus their defense is still very good. But I will say this. The Baltimore Ravens just saved John from that performance on Monday night, right? It was like the NFL kind of set the stage. I mean, it was everything. It was the really the opening of that stadium. Even though the Raiders played in that stadium last year, this was the first game with fans, right?
Yeah.
You had Steve Aoki there DJing before the game. You just had so many things. It was like a Los Angeles Lakers game with the amount of celebrities and fans that were there in attendance. And that game probably drew some of the best ratings in all of week 1. Also with the help of Peyton Manning and Eli Manning doing their broadcast on ESPN2. Absolutely fabulous. I will now be watching every single Monday Night Football game on ESPN2 to listen to Peyton and Eli and see who they bring onto the show. That was way better than listening to the broadcast. No offense to any of those 3 broadcasters, but that was amazing. But John Gruden just got his job saved from the Ravens, and especially their defensive coordinator. Their defensive coordinator must be best friends with Greg Williams. And if y'all don't know who Greg Williams is, he is the former defensive coordinator of the New York Jets, who last year set the all-out blitz on Derek Carr and those Raiders in New York when Derek Carr threw up that Hail Mary to Henry Ruggs, and they beat the Jets on that last-second play. The Baltimore Ravens basically blitzed all out, like a 0-man blitz, like Peyton and Eli were saying on the broadcast all last night, with 0 safeties back. Like, we saw Marlon Humphrey basically give up on that touchdown winning catch, because he was like, there's no safety to help me. I'm not going to be able to catch up to that receiver, right? Like at first you're like, wait a minute, why is Marlon Humphrey stopping? And then it's like, well, there's no way he's going to catch up to him. There's 0 safety. The Ravens brought everyone. They brought the entire house, and Derek Carr was able to just throw the ball up. And so I think it was a good win for the Raiders. They need every single win they can get, because obviously we know how dominant the Chiefs will be, and they're only going to get better. The Broncos looked very good in week 1, and the Chargers are a big threat as well with Justin Herbert at their quarterback spot. So, not to say that division is as good as the NFC West or the AFC North or anything like that, but I think it basically, I think it gave a spark to the Raiders team, and I think this saved John Gruden's job for the year no matter what. They can still be a bad team, but I think John Gruden at least finishes out the year and potentially gets fired after the season's over.
Yeah, I mean, when we go back and listen to our NFL preview show, be in the comments in the description below to hear all our comments on the season. It still holds value. I mean, we've only been 1 week through the season. Don't let us talking about the games this week steer you away from looking at our preview, because we were right about a lot of things on that, and our boy Alex Silva was right about a lot of things too, and I feel like we're pretty spot on with a lot of the things we talked about in that preview. So go look at that. But yeah, I for this game, for me, Jared, I agree with you. I think the Ravens, as long as they stay, if they get healthier, right, they'll have a chance in the playoffs. But I mean, if this team keeps getting hurt, their roster is getting depleted. it showed you last night that when you don't have all the weapons you possibly can, you can lose the game like this to a team that shouldn't have beat you. You know, this was a pretty winnable game for the Ravens. A lot of people, you know, thought the Ravens would kind of just win this game by double digits or something like that. And it looked like that. And then all of a sudden, you know, a couple mistakes here and there, and the Raiders come back. I think this looks good on the Raiders because when you look at the Raiders, their roster isn't that good. And for them to get a win, you know, at home, show that they have like a home field advantage in some ways against a playoff team in the Ravens, you know, this is going to help them, right? If it's them and the Ravens for that 7th spot, and at the end of it, right, if the Ravens are depleted, Raiders have the win now, right? That's big, you know, and there's an extra game this season, so you need to win as many as possible. I thought it was somewhat impressive that the Raiders were able to come back. Now they gave away the game completely with some bad play calling and just some undisciplined play, well, both in the first quarter and the fourth quarter. But, you know, I thought, like, Darren Waller had a great game, but I thought he could have played even better. You know, Josh Jacobs will just get healthier, right? And then that run game will be better than it was last night. So I'm a little bit more impressed with the Raiders after yesterday than I would have been any other result in that game. I thought they showed heart. They showed they have a home field advantage. And, you know, they were able to win a football game, which is impressive in the NFL, something that a lot of teams didn't.
I disagree with the home field advantage because Derek Carr on multiple occasions was having to wave his hand.
That was kind of dumb.
To basically tell the crowd, like, shut up, you guys, I can't even, my offensive linemen cannot hear my cadence. And it actually worked to their disadvantage because I believe they got a couple false starts. One, probably the most key false start was in the fourth quarter when they had 1st and goal and they ran it the first time, got stuffed. And then on 2nd and goal, their right guard false started and they moved back to the 5-yard line.
Alex Leatherwood, number 1 pick.
And that's when Derek Carr threw the interception. So I would, even though, yes, I'm sure being there, it did seem like a home field advantage at certain points. Like, you got to realize as a fan, when your offense is on the field, like, you got to tone it down a little bit, right? Like, because you're actually not helping your team by yelling and screaming and all that stuff. You do that when they make a good play. But when right before they snap the ball, right, like, Derek Carr needs to be able to talk to his team, and he doesn't need the fan like it. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure they were all drinking heavily, and it's Vegas, right? So it's going to be a different scene than most arenas and most stadiums. But yeah, I have to disagree. I don't know if that was necessarily a home field advantage for the Raiders. I think there will be, I guarantee there will be a memo sent out to all of the season ticket holders saying, hey guys, we need your help for the next home game. Cheer after the play, not necessarily before.
Yeah, well,
when the Raiders are on offense.
Jared, maybe a lot of those fans are kind of transplant, right? Like, maybe they're just a lot of Las Vegas football fans that haven't been cheering for the Raiders, so they don't know, like, what to do. Maybe there was a lot of people that were just in Las Vegas last weekend to watch all the NFL games and all the college football games, and they just decided to go to the Raiders game. And they, you know, they don't really know the traditions that we would know for football. But I will say this, what I mean by the home field advantage is that when you win at home, it helps you, right? It does help you. I thought that was impressive. And let me give some credit to Derek Carr, too. Derek Carr was very impressive in this game. Made some mistakes, got a little lucky on some plays, especially in the fourth quarter and overtime. But how many times has Russell Wilson gotten lucky? How many times has Kyler Murray gotten lucky? Aaron Rodgers? You know, like, it happens, right? So, you know, Derek Carr looks impressive. And you know, for Derek Carr, he's proven to himself that, he could get traded maybe next year and go to a better organization. Right? That's all I
hope so. If I'm Derek Carr, I want out. I'm sorry. You're not going to win in Oakland, right? You can put up some numbers. Yes, Darren Waller is a fantastic tight end / wide receiver. You do have Josh Jacobs, who's a very good running back. But that team, especially defensively, is not going to go far. That division will not let them. And then even if for somehow they were to squeak in as a wild card team, they would get blown out in the first round. That team is not playoff ready at all. If I'm Derek Carr, obviously you're trying to win this year. You're trying to put on good tape. But if I'm him, I'm out, man. If his top goal is to win, not in Vegas.
He already got the bag, too. Already got the bag. That's not what it's about anymore. 4 more months to figure it out, Raiders. 4 more months to figure out how to be a championship level team. because you won, but you're not championship level. All right, Jared, I know you have a question for me about more positive NFL stuff, so go right ahead.
Yeah, so we got a little segment here. I'm going to be negative Nancy on this show coming up, but we're going to give Nick the positive spotlight and somewhat of a positive outlook, or maybe two from this past week's games. I know that his Arizona Cardinals did extremely well. I didn't mean to give anything. Didn't mean to give anything away there. I just had to say it so that you couldn't gloat the entire time. Because you've already gloated on this podcast a little bit. But give me one or two positive outlooks from this week's games, whether it was an entire team, a specific player, an offense, a defense. Break it down for me.
Well, you say one or two. I mean, I have one or two teams that were definitely surprising to me with really impressive wins. And that is my Cardinals over the Titans 38-13, right? I don't think anybody can say that's not impressive. They could have put a 50 burger on them if they would have known how to not commit penalties on their first drive, too. The Arizona, that it was really bad if you're a Tennessee Titans fan. I said they have the worst defense in the NFL. I told everybody to bet the Cardinals on Saturday at work, everywhere, and I was completely right. But I did not think it would be that bad. I did not think we'd look that impressive, And then my other team is the Chargers, beating Washington on the road. The Chargers weren't a good team last year, right? A lot of injuries were the reason for that. Maybe some bad coaching by Anthony Lynn. They have a new coach in Brandon Staley now, and they look really, really impressive against Washington, who we know has one of the best defenses in the league. Justin Herbert looked like the superstar we all think he was. So those are my two teams that really had impressive wins that I think them vaults into another tier in the NFL rankings this year in a lot of ways. Two other teams I wanted to mention really quick that had positive wins where the teams they beat aren't as impressive, but they still look good. The Denver Broncos, our boy Alex Dibble was right about his team, right, Jared? Like, they looked really impressive, and they made the Giants look like crap, right?
Which they are.
Yeah, they are. But 27-7, a good running game. Defense showed out. That's what the Denver Broncos are all about, and they always have been. So, very good, impressive win there. But I got to see more, right? I got to see them do it against a good team. And then the Eagles. The Eagles, they destroyed the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons clearly are just one of the worst teams in the NFL, but the Eagles to put a 32-point burger on them and beat them by 26. There was a lot of questions coming about the Eagles, Jared. I know we kind of just threw them out the door, but with a performance like that, you got to give them a little more points in the positive range. And again, they have to prove a little bit more, but them and the Broncos, impressive wins against bad teams. The Cardinals and the Chargers with really impressive wins against good teams as well. So those are my four there. Now, Jared, I do want to mention too, Bengals getting a win against the Vikings, right? I don't know what Alex was talking about with the Vikings this year, but they are trash, and you will see that in week 2 when the Cardinals destroy them just like they did the Titans. And Patrick Peterson regrets leaving our team. Okay, I'm just telling you that right now. But so that's one other team I'll throw in there, but Vikings are trash. But yeah, so Jared, in a more negative sense, who wasn't very impressive to you this weekend in the NFL, and who do you have concerns about after week 1?
There's two teams. One team you and I will get into in just a minute.
Yes.
But the team that I want to initially focus on is the Buffalo Bills.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Coming into this season, last year, they get to the AFC Championship game, and they're so close. They lose to Kansas City in Kansas City. We all remember the picture of Stephon Diggs being the last Buffalo Bills player to leave the field. He's watching Kansas City celebrate. He said that it helped motivate him throughout this entire offseason and that this team was going to come back different. Obviously, Josh Allen just got the bag. I myself had Josh Allen as being the MVP of this entire year, which he obviously still could. But coming out of the gates and losing to Pittsburgh at home, albeit Pittsburgh being a good team and having a good defense, I think the hype that was surrounding Buffalo might have been a little too much, right? I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit, even though it's only been 1 week, right? I'm just going to throw you out some stats here, right? Josh Allen, 270 yards throwing, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, right? Like, yeah, that's not a great performance and not something that we would necessarily expect. I think we would expect over 300 yards and a total of, probably 3 or 4 touchdowns, maybe one of them rushing because he can use his legs to move. So that was a little disappointing. But what I really want to focus on is the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Buffalo was up 10-0 in half, right? And in the second quarter, it's like they forgot that there was a second half. Ben Roethlisberger, 18 for 32, 188 yards and 1 touchdown, right? The total Pittsburgh rushing for the game, they had 21 rushing attempts for 75 yards. If I would have told you that Ben Roethlisberger
sounds like
was only thrown for 188 yards and the Pittsburgh rushing offense would have only rushed for 75 yards, you're going to against Buffalo?
Yep.
Like, this isn't Jacksonville or the Lions or the Giants or something like that, right? This is Buffalo at home. And the way that they lost to Pittsburgh, to me, is just a little bit alarming. Their special teams gave up a punt block where Pittsburgh returned it for a touchdown. I think that was really the turning point. Without that, Pittsburgh actually wins that game because it was a actually, no, I'm sorry. That basically it would have been tied potentially.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm looking at Buffalo and saying, okay, it's one game. I'm not going to just completely throw them under the bus, but I expected more coming out of the gates, right? I expected them to come out against a good Pittsburgh team and assert their dominance from game one and say, we are not over what happened to us last year. Like, Buffalo had a very good chance to get the Super Bowl last year. And I forget if I picked Buffalo to get to the Super Bowl, but I definitely picked them to get back to the AFC Championship game again against the Chiefs. This was not a good start for Buffalo.
I mean, yeah, I kind of followed this game on the, I was watching my Cardinals destroy Tennessee. So I didn't watch this game like through and through. I had other games on during this game. But yeah, just when you look back on the stats and stuff, it seems like the Bills just kind of, like you said, disappeared in the second half. They really did nothing. I think what this says too about them, Jared, or about the Steelers, is that their defense is still legit, right? Like, their defense was able to shut down Buffalo, and that's why they won. They get a big special teams play, which is always nice, that ends up resulting in a touchdown, the best you possibly could have, right? And that wins them the game, essentially. But this is, for me, it is a little disappointing for the Bills. You're right. It's like the same old Steelers for me. And that's why I didn't put them in the impressive for me, just to give you a heads up. Like, if you guys were wondering, why wouldn't you put the Steelers because they beat the Bills? Because Roethlisberger had under 200 yards, still can't take a snap under center. The running game's still trash. And the wide receivers all had the most of the best receiver had 50 yards. It's the defense was unbelievable, like they usually are. Josh Allen had a bad fumble at some point in this game, but like besides that, the Steelers are the same team, and they'll probably end up getting to the playoffs maybe now because they get a big win against Buffalo, and like the Raiders, maybe this vaults them to the playoffs, but they'll lose in the first round, until Big Ben's gone and they have a better quarterback. Like that's just the way it is, and they need to have a better scheme running the ball and spreading the ball around evenly. But yeah, Buffalo, it is a little concerning, Jared, right? Like it might be, I think I outlined it too in my preview this year where I said, Buffalo might not be as good as people think. Their defense got a little worse. People are getting used to Josh Allen and Diggs and all that stuff. And, they lost Zach Moss for the year, I believe. Or they at least lost him last weekend too. So
he was a healthy scratch last week.
Yeah, because that's what I mean. They have no running game, right? Josh Allen, people will start to figure him out a little bit more, right? They stopped Diggs relatively good this weekend with 9 receptions, 69 yards only. So he's only catching short passes there. And the defense got worse. So I don't think the Buffalo Bills are as good. So I'm glad you put him in there.
Well, we're going to find out. The Buffalo Bills in the next month have a pretty tough schedule, right? They get they're at the Dolphins next week. And the Dolphins didn't look, ridiculously good against the New England Patriots in week 1. But we know that the Dolphins defense is very good. Right. And we're not really sure what we're going to get from Tua in that offense, but that's going to be a tough matchup. It's also a division opponent. So those are always tough games. Week 3, the Bills get Washington, and that defense is very good. Even though they did give up some points to the Chargers, Washington defense can travel anywhere. We saw that all last year, and I think they only improved this year. And then in week 5, they're at the Chiefs, Sunday Night Football.
Yep.
So in week 5, week 6, we're gonna know what this Buffalo Bills team is really about, because
Yep.
after that, then they play the Titans, the Jaguars, the Jets. So they're gonna have some cupcake games in the middle of the season. But this Buffalo Bills team, they better turn it around very quick, because they could come out of that Chiefs game realistically 1-4 if they don't turn it around.
I'll say this, Jerry. I'll be even more hardcore about it. If they, let me just count this up real quickly. 1, 2, 3,
They have
4,
the
5,
Texans
6.
in between Washington and Kansas City.
Yeah,
So
Jared.
I
If
would
they,
expect them to
I'll
win
say
that game,
this:
but
by Halloween or after the Halloween game, the second game of the season against Dolphins, if they aren't 5-2, they're not legit content. Like they have to only lose to one of these teams, and if it's the Chiefs, that's fine. Everybody can lose to the Chiefs, and we'll go whatever. It's like anybody losing to Alabama this year in college football. The Chiefs are the best team in the NFL. It's only the Buccaneers, realistically, that we're thinking it might be a better team than them at this point, right? But you have to beat the Dolphins twice. The Dolphins weren't that impressive this weekend. You got to beat Washington. Washington's an average team in a bad division. The Texans, Chiefs, whatever. The Titans, after what Arizona did to them, right? You have to beat them too, and you should beat Dolphins twice. I think you got to be 5-2 if you're a legitimate contender. Like a lot of people are saying, including you, Jared. You got to be 5-2, because then you got the Jaguars and the Jets and the Colts.
that's what I'm saying.
Right? Yeah, like then you're 8-2, and then you have a better chance. And their schedule is hard at the end of the season too. So, yeah, Bills a little bit not impressive this weekend. But Jared, there was one team that was the most unimpressive of this weekend. But I'll let you talk about that.
Wow. Drum roll, please. I mean, if anyone says anything but the Green Bay Packers,
Oh yeah.
you did not watch football on Sunday. The Green Bay Packers, Nick, as you know,
Whew.
went in. This game was supposed to be played in New Orleans,
Yes.
obviously with the Saints having a major home field advantage because
Yeah.
of that dome, but because of Hurricane Ida, that was moved to Florida, and it was actually played at the Jacksonville Jaguars home stadium. And so really the Packers caught a break because they didn't have to play in that dome with a true home field advantage. But it didn't matter, because Sean Payton and Jameis Winston steamrolled the Packers.
Yeah.
Here's what I have to say
That was
about Green
bad.
Bay. I'll let you elaborate on the Saints a little bit if you want. And I'm not saying that this is who Aaron Rodgers is. I think we all know he's Super Bowl MVP, won the NFL MVP last year. Matt LaFleur, it seems to be a good head coach. We get that. The Packers straight up look like they didn't want to be there.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jared, that makes sense, because Aaron Rodgers, the guy that's the top guy, doesn't want to be there.
I mean, listen,
it's a direct product of that.
It looked like a team that didn't have their quarterback for most of the offseason until the day of training camp, which is exactly what happened with Aaron Rodgers being away from the organization until the day of training camp and coming to an agreement with the organization to say, all right, I'm going to play this year, but it's more than likely going to be my last. Devontae Adams, leading up to the week 1 game on Sunday, was asked if him and his representatives were going to try to negotiate a long-term deal with the Packers. He said, no, absolutely not. Devontae Adams knows that this is his last year in Green Bay. So I think some of these guys, mainly Rodgers and Adams, kind of have like one foot out the door already. And that doesn't work in the NFL when you're going up against team, albeit the Saints, who I didn't really know what to expect. He had a very nice preseason, but still, the last time we saw Jameis Winston starting a full regular season, he threw for over 30 touchdowns, but he also threw for 30 interceptions. So I wasn't really sure what we were going to expect. This Packers organization looked depleted. They looked lethargic. They looked like they just simply did not want to be there, and they simply just gave up. And I think that's those words, like giving up and not giving effort. Those are things that should never be said about a professional team. I don't care what sport. If you're a professional athlete getting paid to play, you should be giving effort 110% of the time. And the Green Bay Packers did not do that at all. They may have done that in the first quarter, but after the Saints jumped out to that 14-point lead or whatever it was, it's like the Packers are just like, we don't have a chance, right? We saw Aaron Rodgers make some throws. Like, he overthrew Devontae Adams, and there was no one there but this free safety who had probably the easiest interception of his life, right? Like, we just don't see Aaron Rodgers missing those throws. If anything, Aaron Rodgers will throw the ball away and live to play another down. He is so careful with the football, and it's like he was just, it's like he didn't care. He was just so nonchalant. Like, I'm just going to throw it up. You know, if Devontae Adams gets it, he gets it because he's a great receiver. If not, no big deal. No sweat off his back. Like, I can hear Aaron Rodgers in the back of my head saying RELAX, the famous quote that he had from last year when the team started off bad, or 2 years ago. I forget when it was. But I just don't know if that resonates this year. And like I said, it's only one game, so we can't sit here and completely, overreact. But the lack of effort that we saw from the Green Bay Packers was alarming. And coming into week 2, they get a Monday Night Football game matchup against the Detroit Lions, right? Not only a division rival, but a Detroit Lions team that is not good and who the Green Bay Packers have, for the last 2 decades, absolutely destroyed. So I expect Green Bay, and specifically Aaron Rodgers, to come out and dominate. Like, I would not be surprised if Green Bay won like 30-3. Like, if they do not come out and dominate this game, if it's a close game, if the Lions are keeping it close into the fourth quarter and the Packers only win by like 3 points or maybe even a touchdown, I think we start to sound the alarm bells.
Yep.
And we say Aaron Rodgers might get traded like mid-season.
You're literally stealing the words out of my mouth right now. Like,
take it away.
Okay, here's the thing. If you're a Packers fan, I have a friend that's a big Packers fan. Okay, there is a bit of relaxation after this game. I'll say this. Number one, Jared, you brought it up, the fact that they weren't prepared. Okay, and that has to do with your quarterback hates everybody in the organization and he doesn't show up to training camp. Okay, I'll give you an example of another team that was really successful last weekend that had a tough start to their season because of lack of playing time in the preseason. My Arizona Cardinals. Okay, let me just tell you what happened. So most of the starters and top players, including the quarterbacks and Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt, they all didn't really play in the preseason. And the Cardinals, on their first drive, they ended up with a field goal. They committed 4 penalties and should have committed a 5th, but called a timeout before a delay a game. All on one drive. They ended up with a field goal instead of a touchdown. After that, they only committed 4 penalties the rest of the game, okay, and went on to trounce the Titans 35-13 the rest of the way, right? That is the product of, mismanaging your preseason a little bit, but being like, okay, well, we'll have a bad first drive, and then we'll go. The Packers had a bad first game, right? So I'll give it to them that maybe they were underprepared, right? And you're playing a good team, a team that a lot of people didn't know what to expect from. Everybody knows Jameis Winston's always been a pretty average quarterback in the NFL, almost below average at some points. He destroys them. You're like, what the hell's happening, right? Plus, the game was in Jacksonville. That's brutal heat for a team that plays in the northern part of the United States. The Patriots and Bill Belichick have always had trouble playing in Miami. It's even Tom Brady last year at the beginning of the season had a little bit of tough time getting started in Tampa Bay because of that weather, right? So those are 2 excuses to give the Packers, but this game is must win on Monday. Must win. And you're right, Jared. It's probably must kill, right? You must kill the Lions.
Yeah, no, it's not just must win.
Yeah.
It is must dominate.
And here's the thing, because you're at San Francisco, who's a pretty solid team, right? You're versus the Steelers, top defense. The Bengals look pretty good. You're on the road against them. At the Bears, a little easier. Washington, they're at the Cardinals, Thursday Night Football. At the Chiefs, Seahawks, Jared, like you're saying, they lose to the Lions, or they barely beat the Lions. They lose to the 49ers and Steelers. Say they lose to the Bengals. Rodgers is gone. You're looking at Aaron Rodgers traded to somebody during the regular season. I don't know who that would be. Maybe the Bears. But
here's the thing too, right? Aaron
Washington.
Rodgers is going to be under contract. But if I'm the Packers, when is his highest ceiling, right? Like, when can they get the most in return for him? I mean, it obviously ain't after week 1.
They already messed up, dude. They already messed it up.
But I think if you're the organization, you say, okay, is it best for us organizationally to wait, play out the entire season, try to make one last Super Bowl run, and then potentially trade Aaron Rodgers? Or do we trade Aaron Rodgers during the season to a quarterback needy team, and do we get more in return there, right? I think it's that fine line of saying, do we go for it all again and try to do the last dance, Chicago Bulls last dance with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and all those dudes? Or do we say, you know what, it just doesn't seem like we have it this year. We're going to trade him right now. I think that is such a big question that this organization is going to have to make. And they're not going to have a lot of time to do it, because they're going to get fleeced if they don't play these cards right. Yep. A team is going to come in and make an offer and say, take it or leave it. And the Packers are going to have to take it because they know that if they wait too long, every day that passes, they're going to get less and less for Aaron Rodgers.
Jared, how excited are you if you're John Elway right now? You had a good performance against the New York Giants, and Aaron Rodgers looks like absolute crap in his first game with a team he doesn't want to play for, right? The whole team looks bad. Whew. I'm telling you, man, if they lose to the Steelers and to the 49ers, John Elway is going to throw the house and the Denver Broncos are going to throw the house at the Packers and be like, we'll give you anything for this guy. And then the Broncos, just like they did with Peyton Manning, end up being Super Bowl champs, right?
We'll see. Listen, just, wherever Aaron Rodgers plays, I do need him to play a little better. I got him on 2 of my fantasy teams, and he did not help me at all this Sunday. So for my sake, Aaron, please come out on Monday night and do something a little better than the lackluster, less than 200-yard passing performance that you had with no touchdowns and 2 interceptions. I need a little better than that, personally. Now,
I played Aaron Rodgers in fantasy football, and I won by over 40 points this weekend. I had a good team. It's my best team I've ever had, but that helped. It definitely made it look a lot worse. I know a lot of people that had Aaron Rodgers in their fantasy league. So, yeah, Detroit, Monday. I'll be watching Monday. I'm going to be watching every Monday Night Football game this weekend because of my schedule outside of this podcast. I'm excited about that game. And, boy, Sunshine Jared Goff. That's gonna be a fun matchup, and it probably shouldn't have been a fun matchup, but it is now. All right, Jared. So we'll end the podcast off. 2 more things to talk about real quickly. I want to ask you how you thought about the rookies. Like, how do you think the rookies played this weekend? Not like when you look at the games, there's not much to talk about after the quarterbacks and the teams that they played for did kind of what you'd expect. I think there's one team that was a little disappointing. But like, how did you think the rookie quarterbacks played this weekend? You had Mack Jones for the Patriots. You had Trey Lance for the 49ers. Justin Fields for the Bears. You also had who is it? Zach Wilson for the Jets.
Trevor Lawrence.
Of course, Trevor Lawrence.
Overall pick.
So yeah, well, all of them played at least one snap this weekend. So what'd you think about everybody?
Yeah, everyone was I would say as expected. They're all rookies, right? And people are going to say this is why you don't start rookies and they need to sit and learn for a year and all that stuff. I said it before and I'll say it again. I'm kind of like a broken record. Rookies coming into the NFL, not just at the quarterback position, but especially at the quarterback position, are as ready as they are ever going to be, right? They're in high school and in college. They are now prepped, playing in pro systems, the terminology, the verbiage, all of that stuff. There has not been a better time than now for players transitioning to the NFL to be more prepared. So I don't really want to hear that argument. I think it's just a thing of, listen, the game is faster. You're playing against grown-ass men who are getting paid, right? This is not college anymore where your athleticism can now just take over and you can dominate in every aspect of the game. There are dudes on the other side that want to rip your head off and that depend on this to take care of their families, to put food on the table for their families. So I think it's just a different ball game in that perspective. But I think as the season progresses, we will see these young quarterbacks progress. The game will start to slow down a little bit and get better and better, right? Trevor Lawrence had three touchdowns, but he also had 3 interceptions. It was that kind of up and down thing. I did not expect the Houston Texans to blow out Jacksonville.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I expected Jacksonville to win, but I did not expect Jacksonville to look that bad. Now that because Trevor Lawrence did have 3 turnovers and Houston was able to take advantage of that, but I expect Trevor Lawrence to take better care of the football moving forward. Funny, or not funny, but also an interesting stat. Trevor Lawrence, this was his first regular season loss of his entire career.
Yeah, crazy.
High school did not lose a regular season game. At college, at Clemson, did not lose a regular season game. So that's just interesting right there, right? Obviously,
absolutely.
Zach Wilson with the Jets playing in Carolina. That seemed to be a good matchup because Carolina's defense is not that good and they're pretty young. And so I expected to see, I think a little more explosiveness from Zach Wilson. I think that's all what everyone was enamored about him coming into the NFL with his arm, the way that he can throw from different angles, he can move outside of the pocket. And we did see a little bit of that, but I want to see more. So I think I'm just very much intrigued by seeing this Jets offense open up as the season moves on. Trey Lance obviously was sprinkled into the 49ers kind of offensive play system with Kyle Shanahan. It was mainly Jimmy Garoppolo. But we did see Trey Lance get in there and make some plays. And I think you mentioned this too. This is kind of probably what this offense is going to be like, where Jimmy G will be the starter as long as he is there. And Trey Lance is just going to get some plays here and there. Yeah, I mean, Trey Lance even said, he's like, I wasn't even sure if I was going to play.
Yeah.
Right. So if he doesn't know if he's going to play, we obviously don't. That's going to be a wait and see. Who's next? We had Justin Fields. This is the one. And I said this on last week's podcast. You can go back and check me. Justin Fields needs to be starting for Chicago in order to be relevant, right? If Chicago wants to just, start Andy Dalton because they paid him $10 million, because Matt Nagy guaranteed Andy Dalton that they were going to start him, they're not going anywhere this year. Alex Silva, who was on this podcast last week, was 1,000% right when he said this Bears defense is garbage. I was defending the Bears defense a little bit, and I actually have no leg to stand after that performance. I get it. The Rams are a good team, and they have some good weapons on offense, but that was inexplicable. Some of those wide open passes and deep passes, it's like, where's the safety? Like, there is no discipline coming from that Chicago Bears defense. So if I'm Matt Nagy, I get it. Chicago Bears are playing the Cincinnati Bengals next week. Obviously, that is Andy Dalton's former team. I don't really care about that. I'm putting the best player on the field that's going to give that team the best chance to win, and his name is Justin Fields. It is not Andy Dalton. So if Chicago wants to get serious, they know what they need to do. Apparently, they haven't done that yet. Last but not least, Mack Jones, kind of just there. Didn't really do anything impressive, but also he didn't really make many mistakes as far as turning the ball over and making bad plays. A lot of checkdowns. And I think that was kind of what Bill Belichick had instructed from Mack Jones to say, listen, we don't need you to necessarily go win this game for us. We just need you to not lose the game. And I think that's kind of what Mack Jones did, right? It was a kind of a boring game back and forth, not too many explosive plays. The Patriots definitely had their opportunities to win. But Mack Jones was kind of just there, just filling things out. I would hope that they can open up that offense and we can actually see Mack Jones's arm talent and see a little bit more of why he was number 15 overall pick. But it was just like literally taking baby steps. It was like week 1, all right, dude, you got to crawl before you can walk. You got to walk before you can run. And that's kind of what we saw from Mack Jones. He was simply crawling, and he wasn't able to get up on his 2 feet and actually run yet. So that's what I took away from those rookies.
No, and the reason I gave it to you, because there's no debate about any of this stuff. We both agree. There wasn't much that went on. We both agree Justin Fields should be the quarterback. Sacrificial lamb, Andy Dalton, lose to the Rams, number 1 defense, that's fine, right? I think everybody predicted that. Now, put Fields in now. Put him in now. Let him be the quarterback of your future now, okay? Now Mack Jones, I think all that proved was that he just has a lot. He's just very raw. Like, he has a lot of time to prove to be that Patriots next dude. I think if anything, that game showed that you guys aren't playing in Alabama anymore. Tua and Mack Jones. Like, you don't have all the talent you used to have in college, and that ends up, showing when you have a 17-16 game, right? Like, these guys both aren't ready yet, but I do think they're the quarterbacks of the future for their teams. So, Tua did his usual 200 yards, right? Not much else, a lot of checkdowns, and same with Mack Jones. The other quarterbacks, obviously Lawrence is going to end up losing a ton of games this year, and then the other ones didn't really play. All right, there was three games we didn't talk about that we'll end the podcast on really quickly. The one we won't talk about is kind of predictable Seahawks looking great against the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts' best area of their team, their offensive line, did not look good against a bad Seahawks defense. And Russell Wilson did his thing with the offense. So not much to talk about there. The Colts.
Same old Seahawks.
I mean, but Jared, right? How bad with how bad the Titans looked against my Cardinals, like, maybe the Colts will end up winning. You were pretty sure that the Titans were going to win this division. That is the worst division in football for sure down there. The NFC East is bailed out this year. I'll tell you that right now. But yeah, that game just predictable. There's just nothing to look at with the Colts and the Seahawks. They made it 4-0 for the NFC West this weekend, which is incredible. We also had the Browns versus the Chiefs. Now, I do want to talk about this game a little bit, Jared, okay? Because I want to give myself a little bit of credit, at least through week one. I said the Browns have the most talented roster in the NFL besides quarterback. And it's exactly why they lost to the Chiefs. And it's why the Chiefs, who probably have the best roster behind the Buccaneers, they do have a quarterback, and that guy was able to beat the Browns. And I just think that, Baker Mayfield was the reason they ended up losing this game. The last two drives, I believe he had let me just get to the stats really quickly on this. I apologize for not having this up. Thought I had it up. I didn't. But, he failed the two big drives of the game to be that guy again. And like everyone said, I know he was missing OBJ, but he's missed OBJ now for 2 years. So, I just thought that Baker Mayfield wasn't impressive at all in this game. Near the end, he was impressive before that. And he kind of let the game go. Let's say an interception and a 3-and-out on the two biggest drives of the game. And that's exactly what I was talking about with Baker Mayfield, not being enough of the guy in the big moments. And what a bigger moment than, the two-time Super Bowl Kansas City Chiefs.
I mean, listen, the Browns should have won that game. Plain and simple. The way that they played, the way that they were literally so dominant in the running game. There was a Nick Chubb run where he scored like a 20-yard touchdown run, and there was literally not a Chiefs defender within 5 yards of him. It was like the Browns offensive line was playing against the JV high school Kansas City defensive line, other than Jones, who's a Pro Bowl defensive tackle for them, right? I mean, I really don't know why Baker Mayfield even threw the football in this game, because the Chiefs had zero answer for the Browns running attack, right? And they had that crazy two-headed monster, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. They were doing whatever they wanted, right? What is the best way to keep Patrick Mahomes and that team from scoring? To keep him on the sidelines without his helmet and a cap on. And you do that by running the football, right? I get it. You got to do some play action. You do have some good receivers in Landry and some of those dudes out there. But I would have ran the ball 80 times and said, you can't do it until you stop us. I would have ran power 6 straight times until the Chiefs literally put 9 or 10 guys in the box and said, stop us.
Yeah.
They couldn't do it.
I mean, Jared, when you look at the stats too, first drive of the game, perfect. 13 plays, 7 minutes taken off the clock. 6-0, right? They go for 2. They go up by 8. I love that, right? Second drive, 6 plays, touchdown, boom. Third drive, 6 plays, touchdown, boom. 3 minutes off the clock. He scored a touchdown. I have no problem how much time he took off the clock, right? In the second half, Nick Chubb fumbles. That's big, right? Right after a Chiefs touchdown. Another drive, 5 minutes, 9 plays, touchdown, right? And then again, like I mentioned though, 4-and-out, right? On the late drive, 3-and-out, interception. Like, what the hell is that? It's so frustrating. They do everything perfect. And then, like you mentioned, why is Baker Mayfield passing? I know you're down by 2, but you're down by 2. You don't need to pass. Just keep running. I think they were shocked by that long touchdown to Tyreek Hill, but that's going to happen when you play the Chiefs. It's exactly what I thought was going to happen, but I'm just disappointed in the Browns. It's probably the most disappointing I've been of any team this weekend. That's why I wanted to talk about them a little bit, because I'm just like, what the hell happened?
I'm disappointed in them, just like I'm disappointed in my Cowboys, because they played so well and they should have won.
There's one guy. There's one guy to blame for your loss, though. That's different. I mean, it's the same with Baker, but your problem with the Cowboys is a problem that like any team could have at any moment if a guy just starts choking. A kicker problem. Go ahead. I didn't want to steal your thunder, but I wanted to give
the
Cowboys were impressive.
Right.
But
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is you play so well and you get right there, but then you don't get over the hump, right? It's like you do all that work, and at the end of the day, it's for nothing because you have a loss in the L column, right? You have a 1 in the L column and a 0 in the win column. No one really cares anymore how many yards you ran for, how many touchdowns Nick Chubb had. He also had that fumble as well. It's like you have to be able to capitalize on those opportunities. Yes, the Chiefs, for some reason, going back to the last couple of years in the playoffs, they find their way into double-digit deficits, right? And they're okay with it. They're comfortable in that situation because they know how explosive their offense is. And literally, in the blink of an eye, it takes 1 to 2 plays. Patrick Mahomes chucks the ball up to Tyreek Hill, right? And boom, they're right back in the game. So they're not worried about that. It's just when you have a team like that, somewhat on the ropes, you got to take advantage of it. And the Browns didn't do it. The Browns are going to be fine. They're still going to be a good team. I still think they're going to win this division, or I think they're going to have an opportunity to win this division. But you can't let those types of games slip from your fingers, especially when it's the Chiefs, right? Who knows what happens? The Chiefs are in a tougher division this year than they were last year, with the Chargers and the Broncos, and even the Raiders obviously looking very well. So if you're the Browns, you're going to be fighting with the Steelers and the Ravens for a playoff spot. You could potentially see this Chiefs team again. What happens if you all have the same record, or what happens if the Chiefs beat you by 1 win, right? 1 game. You're going to look back at week 1 and say, woulda, coulda, shoulda. So, for the Browns, it's like, you played so well. Now you got to finish, man. Got to finish.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. You can have the most talented roster in the league. If you can't finish. Cowboys have a pretty damn impressive roster, at least on offense. Couldn't finish, right? Who has a great roster and then finished? The Buccaneers, right? Great roster didn't finish Browns. Great roster did finish Chiefs. And those are probably the 2 teams that will be in the Super Bowl unless we have a surprise. So, yeah, definitely impressive. I did want to give my opinion a little bit on the Cowboys. I was very impressed on the Cowboys as well. Tampa Bay did what they were supposed to do. That game, it didn't show anything bad about either team. It actually showed good things about both teams. And I just think the Cowboys, you have a kicker miss two 30-plus yard field goals, or 2 30-yard field goals. Like, come on. You can't do that. The extra point and the field goal, and the Buccaneers would have had to try to score a touchdown at the end of that game. And that's a lot harder than a field goal where Tom Brady's throwing 3 straight balls out of bounds, which needs to be a penalty. Okay, I don't want to see that ever again. I know the push off, and that was close, and that's probably a foul. We know how the refs let him play a little bit later in the game, but come on, the whole game you're calling it one way, and then the Patriots get a big play from Chris Godwin, and all of a sudden, But I don't like that Tom Brady was allowed to just throw the ball out of bounds, clearly, intentionally, and just the refs he's throwing it out of bounds on purpose, still flag, right? Come on. Cowboys got screwed by their kicker, though, not the refs.
True. Yeah, it's smart on Tom Brady. I mean, listen, if it's not in the rule book, he's going to take advantage of it and do it. I don't blame him. I blame the Dallas defense for not stopping them in the 4th quarter. Trayvon Diggs got both hands on the football and had an opportunity, had an interception, did not do it. Yeah. And then I think there should have been a pass interference call, an offensive pass interference call there. But you're right. Dallas needed to make their field goals, capitalize on turnovers. They were +3. They were the 4th team, I believe, since the NFL became an organization, only the fourth team to have a +3 in turnovers, which means they had 3 more takeaways than they gave the ball away.
Yeah.
And to lose. Usually when you get 3+ turnovers, you're going to win. That's 3 more opportunities that your offense has that they probably wouldn't have had. And Dallas did not take advantage of that enough. So I think they will. They're a good team. They get Zach Martin back this week, which is great to help with their offensive line, right? So I think they're good. They're good, but just like the Browns, you have to finish. You play well for 3.5 quarters, and then you get to that 5-6 minute mark in the fourth quarter, and things start to fall apart just a little bit. Even though Dallas did drive down and score, right, and they forced Tom Brady to come back on the field, you got to finish, man. Whether your offense is on the field, whether your defense is on the field, or whether it's special teams, you got to finish.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And like I just mentioned, I mean, even with that Godwin call, if the Cowboys, if Greg Zuerlein makes those field goals, the call doesn't matter as much at that point because you still have to score a touchdown, which is a lot harder with no timeouts also. All right, that's going to be it for the podcast. Real quick, want to give a shout out. First time on this podcast, I can say that I will be looking at my brother playing in a college football game this week.
Go.
The Yale Bulldogs will be taking on Holy Cross University, another private school to open up the season. Real quickly, Holy Cross, they beat UConn already. So not the easiest matchup. Yale is a top 3 Ivy League team, and they've been in the top 2 of the standings the last few years, along with Princeton and Dartmouth. So his team's going to be pretty good. Not sure how much he's going to play with all the COVID and all the new players coming in. It's hard to tell who's going to play. So hopefully get some playing time. But that's why I'm repping only the Yale Bulldogs. I could have repped my Cardinals on this podcast, but I did not. I thought this would be more appropriate.
That's a sick hat, man. I need one of those.
Hey, I'll give you some merch.
Nenad. What number is he? What number is he?
You know what? That's a good question. I don't even know yet. I think he's number 11 still.
How do you not know what number he is?
I didn't even know his game was this Saturday. I've been so thrown out. There's been so much football lately. I forgot.
You can't shout out your brother's team if number one you didn't even know he was playing this week.
No,
you don't even know the dude's number.
Well, that's why I'm shouting it out so I can remember myself. I can go on the podcast when I'm editing and be like, "Oh, that's right, he has a game this weekend." Thank you for calling me out. Yeah, thank you for calling me out.
That's Packers bad right there.
No, that's not Packers.
That's not being prepared.
Come on, Jared. That's not nothing's worse than Packers bad. Okay.
That's your brother.
But yeah, that's our football podcast again. Hey, we'll be back next week, right? We were able to do the podcast this week, start with Monday Night Football in the NFL and ending with Thursday Night Football. So maybe we'll have to do that. I don't think there's going to be much to talk about with that Washington New York game on Thursday, which is in 2 days. But
Washington doesn't have their quarterback, Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, Fitzpatrick's out for a while. Yeah,
Playoff Heineke's back in.
Playoff Heineke's back in, and non-playoff Daniel Jones is still playing for the Giants. So I got
the ball over.
I got the WFT, the Washington Football Team, in that game. And we'll do more betting and stuff like that. I'm telling you, if you are not a UCLA fan, Fresno State, maybe this Saturday, but gonna be sketchy. I might go to the game. I don't know. Maybe I won't. I don't know. I'll let you guys know. I'll post it. I'll post it if I'm at the game.
Your money.
Yeah. All right, that's it for the podcast. Once again, I am Nick Nenad.
I'm Jared Smith.
And we'll see you guys next week talking more football.
Peace.